Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today I'm doing the next installment in my palette roulette series. This was put on hold so that last week I could bring you my Kaleidos Club Nebula 3 Looks 1 palette. I will link that up in the cards for you if you'd like to go visit that. It was an amazing experience. I'm so glad that I got it, but I'm excited to dig into this palette for the palette roulette series. And if you are new to this channel and you're here looking for a review of a palette that is on the market that you can still pick up, one that isn't necessarily new, one that is something that people rave about all the time, you're in the right place, because we will be going over the ABH Soft Glam today. But in general, I do palette reviews every single week, and I hope that you'll want to come along for the ride. I don't typically do these palette roulette series on a brand new palette out on the market unless by chance it's pulled up on my app. For those of you who are not new here, you do know that I use a Decide Now app to pick the next palette that I will be using. With that said, let's dig into this. This palette this week is the ABH Soft Glam. As I said, this palette does come in at $45. And you can purchase it on Ulta, you can purchase it on ABH, I've seen it on Beauty Bay, I believe, Beautylish, maybe. I've seen it, of course, on Sephora. It does have 4.8 stars on the Ulta Beauty website with 774 reviews. And I think that that is pretty standard across the board. I do not have any other rankings on here, for God knows why. I typically give you like 2 or 3 different ranking systems out there. But for whatever reason, I only picked up one this week. I would say that this probably comes in that 4.8 star range for me, which is saying a lot because this is just not my color story. I typically love bright, brilliant colors.
My hair is going through a journey. I'm sorry. I can't figure out what I want to do with it, whether I want to chop it all off or whether I want to continue to grow it, or what I want to do. And right now it's pissing me off, so it's up in this clip right now, and it doesn't necessarily look the best, if I'm honest, but it is what it is. So back to regular programming now that I've given you my hair disclaimer.
This does call for a $45 price tag. I would probably give it that 4.8 star as well. It has 0.28 ounces of product, or 0.02 ounces per pan of product, and it does have 14 shades and 3 finishes in the palette. So to start, this is what the palette looks like. It is just a really like mustardy yellow. It is that felt that ABH is known for. It does say Soft Glam across the front of it, as well as Anastasia Beverly Hills across the front of it. And these are, you know, indented into the packaging, so it does have a little bit of a textile effect to it. The back of it is a sticker on top of the felt that just says what the palette is. It does have all of the ingredients in the palette. It does tell you how to get a hold of ABH. It does tell you it has an 18-month shelf life and it is cruelty free. I love these palettes, and I'm probably one of the few that do. What I will say though is that these tend to get really super dirty as you're using them, just like your makeup-y fingers touching them, or any kind of lint or fuzz that you have in your daily life is going to sit on top of this felt, and it's going to live there forever. My Modern Renaissance palette, the really pretty dusty pink felt, is really gross and dirty, dingy at this point in time. So as I said, this does have 14 shades with 3 finishes. You open up the palette and it does have a decent sized mirror. I never take the little plastic off of the mirror because I just don't find value in using the mirror in my palettes. I very rarely use the mirror in the palettes. What I will say though is if you are one that does, this isn't going to sit up for you. You will have to hold on to it and face it like this. But with that said, I do like a palette that bends back like this. I tend to use these mirrors that bend back on the palette more so than I do one that stands up, honestly, as if it were a vanity. I just tend to use the ones that flip back like this a little bit more. So depending on what kind of user you are of mirrors, this might behoove you. This is the palette. Here you can see it does come with a brush. This is the brush. The brush is made in China. I don't find value in the brushes that ABH puts in their palettes, if I'm honest. These brushes, you know, the blending side is rather pokey in my opinion, and the packing side is more pokey in my opinion. I do feel like the packing side works a lot better than the blending side, but I would rather they take the brushes out of the palette and make the cost about $5 less. I think that that would benefit them, because I don't know of a person that uses these brushes, if I'm honest. But this is what the palette looks like. So the 3 finishes it claims to have are matte, duochrome, and shimmer. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't find that any of these performed as a duochrome would. This launched in 2019 and it is very a warm tone palette, warm tone neutral palette. What I think is good to note is that this palette does have a little bit less product in it than, say, like the Jackie Aina palette or the Alyssa Edwards palette, but it does have the same as the Carly Bible palette. So not all their palettes in this 14 pan mindset are built equally. Some of the pans do have more and some less. I think a lot of that really comes down to formulation and what's actually in the pan, because you all know some formulas weigh less than other formulas do, so it depends on what is more or less in the palette. This does have 3 shades that are repeats from other palettes, Modern Renaissance specifically. So you have Tempra up here, which is a repeat from Modern Renaissance. You have Burnt Orange, which is right here, that is a repeat from Modern Renaissance. And you have Cypress Umber, which is right here, which is also a repeat from Cypress Umber, Modern Renaissance. I do think that it is, I wrote something down in here that I do think that this Cypress Umber and the one from Modern Renaissance is a little bit different. I think that this one leans a little bit more brown than the one in the Modern Renaissance palette, which I felt was a little more red brown. I think that's what I have in here. Maybe I just mentally noted that and forgot to write it down. So then there are also 4 shades in here that are repeats from their permanent line. So you can buy these in single shadows, and I do think that I have a couple of them in single shadows. This Orange Soda is part of their permanent line. Dusty Rose, which is right here, is part of their permanent line. I do believe I have this one in a single. Sienna is part of their purple or permanent line. And then Noir is part of their permanent line, and I'm certain I have this in a single as well. So there are 7 shades in this palette that you can come by in a different way, shape, or form in their own personal lineup. I feel like this palette worked best over a primer, especially the shimmers. I really do like ABH shimmers. They are probably one of my favorites, but they're one of my favorites for a very different reason than some of my other favorites are in my lineup, right? They're one of my favorites because they create a really nice, subtle shininess to an eye look. There's not very many of their shimmers that I really put on my lid and I'm like, wow, that's a shimmer. But they create a really nice gradient and a really nice, beautiful, like just subtle shininess to your eyes. So if you're going for a subtle smoky eye, a subtle shiny eye, a subtle beauty eye, and you just want a touch of shimmer but not like overtaking your whole eye look, these would be the palettes for you, the ABH lineup. I do have almost every single palette in the ABH lineup. I think I don't have the Embreezy, and I don't have anything older than Modern Renaissance, because Modern Renaissance was the very first palette that I purchased from them. I've only been in this makeup scene for about 3.5 years now, so that was the very first one that I picked up. I like the longevity of these shadows. Every ABH shadow that I've ever worked with has a phenomenal longevity to it, but on a primed eye, these shadows stayed for a good 18 plus hours. And the reason why I can say that with confidence is because you all know, if you're familiar with my channel, that I tend to sometimes fall asleep on the couch with my eyes still on. I wash the rest of my face or just don't wear makeup on the rest of my face, but my eyes are always done. And sometimes when I fall asleep on the couch, I fall asleep on the couch and I'm there until the very next day. And there was one eye look that I did with this, and I will put a picture up of the next day after I had applied it. So you'll see a picture of me with it on my eye, freshly applied, and then you'll see a picture of me, and I think it's with my Benefit They're Real Magnet mascara that I posted on my Instagram. That was second day makeup. I didn't touch it up at all prior to doing that picture. Which is very sad. But with that said, I can bring to you the facts that with a primer, this makeup is going to last you forever on your eyes. And I think a lot of that really stems to pigmentation. These shadows in every ABH palette I've ever had has an amazing amount of pigmentation. Like, they go on a dab will do you. You do not need much, or you will get frustrated with the palette because of how pigmented it is. If you go in and slather your brush with a whole bunch of that pigment.
My dog is snoring super loud in this room, and a dog's got to live its life, so I'm not going to wake him up and be like, quit snoring! I've already yelled at him for licking because he also licks pretty loud. He's snoring really loud over there, so if you hear snoring, that is what it is. And I know that you guys are used to background noise in my videos anyways, so there's that.
If you go in super heavy-handed with the shadows in this palette, you're going to regret it. They're so pigmented. They're also super powdery. I have, because I've been working with ABH for as long as I have, and they are one of my favorite formulas, I have almost perfected being able to work with these shadows and not get fallout all over my face. I still do my eyes first, and if you don't like to go in super light-handed and then build up, you are going to find a lot of fallout on your face. If you go in super light-handed, like, I'm not kidding, like, dip your brush in, tap it off, go in, dip your brush in, tap it off, go in, you're going to feel like all it is fallout on your face. That is not how these shadows perform if you work with them with kitten gloves. With that said, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to make an eye look that you want with the pigmentation that you want. Because these are so pigmented, even though you're tapping off, you will find that it builds up rather quickly and it looks the best it's going to look rather quickly. So you don't therefore have to worry about fallout or spending 200 hours on your makeup look. I just don't find that to be true with these palettes, and I know that fallout is a make or break for many people. I feel like that's sad because you're going to miss out on some pretty amazing shadows to work with. Honestly, that's the way I feel about ABH. I know that for those of you not new to my channel, you know that I love ABH. They're one of my top 5 brands, probably my top 3. I think that they're phenomenal, and this might come across as biased, but truly, if you spend the time learning how to manipulate the shadow, which you're going to have to do with any makeup product that you have in your collection, if we're honest. So if you spend the time learning how to manipulate the shadow to suit your perfect shadow options, you will find that these are probably going to rank right up there for you. They will have fallout if you go in like just super heavy-handed. If you don't like to blend your shadows, these are going to have fallout if you want the pigmentation that you're going to want without blend. Does that make sense? Am I making sense to anybody? I like to note that because I know that there is a lot of flack out there for ABH shadows because of their fallout and because they're so powdery. Yes, they are. But they're pigmented, they blend like a dream, and if you figure out how to utilize them properly, you won't see nearly the same amount of fallout that you do right now, currently, using ABH the way you are. So, getting off my soapbox, the shimmers work best wet. I do feel like these ones on my lid today are dry. I do have this gold here packed on, and then this pink here packed on top of that. This one is the one that I spent the most amount of time trying to cater to fallout with, and you guys can see, I don't know if you can see, but it is so loosely packed in there that it just kind of wants to crumple out of the pan every single time you touch it with your brush, which is fine. It's just hard to work with without it being wet. They all work better wet. If you want them to stick on your eye, you need to wet them. If you're offended by the fallout, you need to wet them. Dry, for the most part, they're good. They're just okay. And I would say they're, in this palette, subpar to many other of the shimmers in my ABH collection, but they're still decent. They're more on the subtle side than they are on the shiny side. They last a good 8 to 10 hours without movement on my eye. I think that's another thing that I appreciate ABH for, is that sometimes with shimmer shadows, I can put them in one spot on my eye look and the next thing I know, they're kind of meandering all over the place. These ones don't really do that. They just kind of stay where you've put them. Once you take the fallout off, like I also don't find that I am struggling to get the fallout off of my cheeks for, you know, 30 minutes or more trying to get all the little glitter particles out, because that's just not how these guys operate, which I appreciate. They're great for, this palette I think is great for glam looks. I also think that it is really great for subtle looks. This could be your everyday palette if you wanted it to be. This Tempra shade is a phenomenal brow bone and inner corner highlight shade. I do have it on my brow bone and my inner corner today. I would say that this one also is, but it leans a lot gold. And we all know that gold is not my favorite color story to use on my eyes. Every time I put gold on me, I feel like I look funny with it. And I think a lot of that comes from my complexion more than anything. I don't like gold. I don't even wear gold jewelry. I think that it is versatile, but it does have less shimmers than I like. It only has 5 shimmers versus 9 mattes. So the 5 shimmers that you're going to get are these 2 here, and then these 3 here, and then the rest are mattes, and I prefer more of a 50-50 split as far as shimmer to mattes go. And that was one of my favorite things about the ABH, or like Lorac even. Their palettes were pretty much a 50-50 split most of the time. It, like I said, boasts a duochrome, and I'm just not seeing a duochrome. So with that being said, let's go through these shadows. I am going to swatch this first row first and then the bottom row next. Then we'll talk about them and we'll pull for a new palette. And that's another thing that I would like to say, is they are all so super buttery smooth to the touch, even the shimmers. And sometimes in some palettes, your shimmers are a little bit grippy. Another thing that I would like to note is their mattes are mattes. Like I don't really think I have ever dealt with a glittery matte in an ABH palette. So I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but there's that. So the first one here is Tempra. You can see it is super pigmented. It is a matte beige, and it really is a great shadow for brow bone. It's a great shadow for inner corner, just lightening up anything that you need to lighten it up. This one does have a little bit, it does feel a little bit more satiny to the touch. I would not say that it gives you kind of that like sheeny essence, but it does feel a lot more satiny to the touch. The second one is this one here. It is called Glistening, and it is a shimmery peachy gold. And if there were a duochrome in this palette, I think it might be this one. I'm not sure, but this is the only gold that I used out of this palette that I really felt comfortable wearing on my eyes, because it's got a little bit more of that peachiness to it, and it looked really good with the oranges in this palette. The next one I have is this one here, and that is Orange Soda. You can see that that is just a really light orange shadow. It really works well as a transition shade. I have it in my eye look today in the crease and up towards the brow bone, and it really complements every other shadow in this eyeshadow palette, and it works well as a transition or to blend out other colors. The next one here is that rose gold shadow. This one is really pretty. It is a shimmer. It's kind of like a rosy coppery color. I think it looks almost more copper on like a brown eye look, but more rosy on an orange eye look. So I think it complements the other shadows in this palette very, very well. Okay, this one is the one called Sultry, and it is a metallic brown, and that one is the one that is a lot more loosely pressed in the pan. You're going to see a lot more fallout with that one. So creamy, but very, very loosely pressed in the pan. I would say this one you need to work with your finger, because otherwise you're going to make a mess of your pan. Your brush might dig all the way down into the bottom of the pan of this guy if you don't use your finger. And you all know I do not like using my finger. The next one on top is this one, and it is called Bronze. This one is in my eye look today. That is so gold. So gold. I do have that one with this one packed on top of it, right in the center of my eye look. I think it gives it just a really pretty, like more of a coppery color than a brown like what this is. It is definitely just a very metallic bronzy gold color. I guess it could lean, maybe if you put it with a green eye look, it could lean very olive too. I kind of see that in it a little bit. And then the last one in that top row is Mulberry, and it is a matte red plum color. I think it's definitely leans more red brown, but it's described as a red plum. I think it looks really, really nice with that sultry color. I think it also looks really, really nice with that rose gold color. So both of these really complement that shade very, very well. That shade is also in my eye look today, but you really can't tell that it's in there. That is the first row of shades in the palette, and that is also where most of your shimmers are in this palette, is that first top row. Second row, we're going with Dusty Rose. So that is that dusty, like pinky lilac color. It's a really pretty transition shade also. I feel like that's probably its best use in this palette. It doesn't really speak volumes to any of the other shades in this palette. I think that that shade could have been changed out for maybe, I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, it does look very, very pretty with that rose pink. It also looks very, very pretty with glistening. The next one in the palette is Fairy. And this one is actually, I believe, what they have slated as the duochrome. So this one is a shimmer light gold. It just reminds me too much of glistening. Honestly, the only difference is it's a little more yellow than glistening is. Glistening, I feel like, is a little more peachy, and Fairy is a little more yellow. I would have rather had, you know, even a brighter, different kind of matte, or a brighter, different kind, or maybe even an actual duochrome. Who knows? The next one is this, and this is Burnt Orange. This one is a matte orange brown, really, really pretty color. This one is more like a terracotta. As you build it up, it kind of becomes a lot more like a terracotta orange. On my hand, it looks very peachy, but that's not really how it appears on the eye. And then this one is called Sienna, and it is, you can see, a very red brown. It reminds me of clay, like clay pots. So the last three are all mattes, and we do have this one here, which is called Rustic. It is a matte cinnamon brown. It's a very, like, it blends out very nicely and very light. It is actually on top of the deeper brown in my eye look today, so it is blended out towards the upper portion of my brow bone area, and it's this pigmentation when you pack it in, but it blends out so, so beautifully. And then we have the dark brown in the palette, which is the Cypress Umber. Like I said, I feel like this one leans a little bit more actual brown than the one that is in the Modern Renaissance palette. I feel like that one was a little bit more red, and maybe I'll grab that palette before we leave and we can compare them, because maybe I'm just crazy. But that look is, or that shade is also in my eye look. It is deepening up the crease in the outer and inner corner of my eye look. And then, of course, Noir, which is black. It's matte black. That's a horrible swatch, but I do feel like Noir is one of the best blacks that I have in my collection, which is why I also have it in a single, because the ABH matte black is such a great matte black. But again, I go back to what I said about the entirety of their shadows in the first place. A dab will do, like literally the teeniest, tiniest smidge of this black is all you need for probably your entire eye look. So with that said, there are those shades for the second row in this palette, and then both of them together. You can see it is a very, very warm toned palette. You have a billion shades of brown and orange and like red tones in this palette for sure. I do think that, you know, all of the shimmers were pretty. I just think that they're maybe not as pretty as I've seen in other ABH palettes. I also think that there's just far too much gold in it. I get it. I am the only one on the planet that doesn't like gold on my eyes, but there's so many gold shimmers in here. I really think that we could have had a different shade in this palette and still it could have been very soft glam. I think even a shimmer orange or a more peachy color than this like glistening color, because that one does lean a little bit more like almost light tangerine on an eye look, but I think that it could have even been more orange and it would have been perfect. I also just really feel like this shade here, it works, but it doesn't really work, honestly. It's very cool tone as opposed to the rest of the shades in here. You're almost like, okay, where do I go with this? How do I use this in an eye look? So I don't know. I feel like it was a great palette, and truth be told, I don't wear a lot of browns, but I do feel like my brown eyes look very nice in browns. My brown eyes look very nice in many colors, but probably my favorite, like, just stunning eye looks are brown eye looks. So I've got my Modern Renaissance palette right here. They just look a smidge bit different to me. Okay. So we've got Cypress Umber from my Soft Glam, and then we have Cypress Umber from Modern Renaissance. They look very different. All right, Soft Glam, Modern Renaissance. See? They look very different, only I was maybe backwards, because I do believe that the Soft Glam one looks a bit more red than this one. This one is very cool tone, I feel like, and this one is definitely warmer. Okay, let's do Tempra. Okay. Soft Glam, Modern Renaissance. Soft Glam, Modern Renaissance. I do believe that the Soft Glam one looks a little bit more yellow. Do you guys, am I seeing things? Interesting. Interesting. I think I'm done with that. For those of you who are new here, I do use an app to pick a new palette. I have a Samsung Note 9, so I'm operating off of an Android system and pick my apps out of the Play Store, but I know that this app is feasible in any iOS system, or in any operating system, I guess I should say. It is, the Decide Now app is the name of the app I use, and this is what it looks like. It's just a Wheel of Fortune app that I put all of the palettes that I had in my collection when we first started this into, and then as we use them through this palette roulette series, or I declutter them, or I just know I'm not gonna like them and I give them away, I take them out. So as I haul them in with you guys, I do put them into the app, and we have still a plethora of palettes to choose from. I'm hoping that we get another one that I haven't used. That was my first experience with Soft Glam, not my first experience with ABH overall, but my first experience with Soft Glam, and I actually have a great fondness, a greater fondness, I think, for that palette than I did prior to using it, to be honest, because, you know, the browns, and I'm not a brown girl. With that said, to spin the app, we just press the blue button in the middle, and that is what I'm going to do now. Looks like we have the Viseart Soleil palette. This is just a little tiny guy, but it does have 8 solid shadows. So I'm gonna go get it. I will be right back. It's just this little tiny itty bitty like palm size guy. I found that this was really nice for travel because it's got a good magnetic closure and it takes more to get to the shadows than just, you know, it flipping open. So when you open it up, it opens like this. It does have a nice mirror on it, and then these are the shadows, really pretty shadows. I think that it's got a nice, like, you know, even toned matte that would work great for transition, brow bone, inner corner, anything like that. It's got a lot of color in it as well, but it also has some really nice, like, just really pretty neutral tones that could go with anything. I am excited to see how well I fare with this and this alone. I just don't think that it's one that I can use on its own. I think that I've always thought that it's a good little companion palette, but we will see. We will see. Sometimes I'm able to work miracles even I didn't know I could do. So there's that. So this will be the palette that we go over next week. I do hope that you guys will join us for that. If you liked this video, I do hope that you give it a big thumbs up down there. It really does help our channels. It helps YouTube be aware that there are people out here watching our videos. I also hope that you liked it, or me, enough that you're considering subscribing, coming along for my crazy midlife crisis here, and joining us on a regular. I do upload content 3 to 4 times a week, every single week, and I would love to have you along. Would love to see you in the comments section. I would love for you to hit that notification bell so you're not missing anything if you do subscribe. I do hope that 2021 is treating you kindly so far. Welcome to March. Holy cow, how did we get here already? Please join us. Please join us on this adventure, this ride. I would love to have you along. Again, hit that notification bell if you are subscribing so that you're notified every single time I upload a video. I do hope 2021 is treating you kindly so far. I also hope that you and yours are staying safe and healthy and well out there, and that you're wearing your masks if for no other reason but to protect yourself, just for a smidge bit longer. And I hope that you all are loving each other, but loving each other from afar. Thank you so much for coming again today, and until next time, bye everyone.
Percy, quit licking. Quit, you're loud. You're loud.